Hello, YouTube, back again to talk about another NFL division. This time, breaking down the AFC North. I figured since I did the NFC North last time, let's do the NFC North this time since it was the second most voted in the poll I had a couple of days ago. So we'll go from first to worst and who I think is going to finish where, go over their key additions and departures, and then go from there. And I'll just give you my thoughts about where each team is going to go and how well I think they'll fare this season. Well, let me know what you think down below. As always, comments are appreciated. Subscriptions are always optional. And let's just get into it. Starting with the first team, the Bengals. Now, despite the slim, shady look on Joe Burrow, I think this team will ultimately come down to his performance this year, as well as the offensive line. As far as additions go, Geno Stone should be a nice addition for their secondary. Von Bell as well, coming back to the Bengals team that he was with a couple years ago. Zach Moss should be a nice replacement for Joe Mixon. Hopefully he's not as injured. And hopefully last year for their sake it wasn't a fluke. Sheldon Rankins, he's had some spot duty going from team to team as kind of a hired gun. Should be decent on the defensive line. Trent Brown will be a nice offensive lineman. Mike Gesicki will be a nice tight end. And Amarius Mims, their number one pick on the offensive line, he'll go a long way to deciding how well this team goes, because honestly the offensive line, they have not been able to get that right over these past couple of years. They've always had some kind of issues. Joe Burrow has always gotten sacked a lot, and as a result he's gotten injured more often than not. Now they lost Joe Mixon, that'll be a loss. Tyler Boyd, a nice slot wide receiver, will definitely be missed. Jonah Williams as well. DJ Reader will definitely be the biggest loss for them. He was a huge presence in the middle of the defense, and yes, Sheldon Rankins was brought on, but he's nowhere near what DJ Reader is, and DJ Reader will be a huge loss for them. We'll see how well their defense is able to recover, but I think obviously they'll lose some of that pass rushing edge. I mean, we already know that some players want to be off the team. Troy Hendrickson, mainly one of them. But we'll see what happens. But ultimately, if Joe Burrow plays like he has been when he's not injured, they're going to win this division. I really think they have the best team in the division as long as Joe Burrow is healthy. I think he's the best quarterback in the division as long as he's healthy. And we're just going from there. Ultimately, for this team, comes down to playoff success. So they'll probably have a great regular season, but it all depends on if they can make it back to the Super Bowl, which I think they can, but can they beat the Chiefs again in the playoffs? It remains to be seen. Next, we have the Ravens, who didn't add too much. Of course, Derrick Henry is probably their biggest addition. He'll be a nice running back for them. Probably still go over 1,000 yards. Just he's gonna lose carries obviously to Lamar Jackson, Keaton Mitchell, and any other running back they have, because the Ravens always have a room of running backs to choose from, and they simultaneously switch between them. Lost Jadeveon Clowney, lose some pass rush there. OBJ, yeah, I mean, he lose a little bit, but he really hasn't been great since 2016, to be honest. I mean, he's just kind of been off injured so long. Morgan Moses will be a miss on the offensive line. J.K. Dobbins, it's a shame that he was never able to fully repeat that year that he had his rookie year in Baltimore, just always injured. Now we'll see what he does in L.A. Gus the Buzz is gone too, but like I said, they have another room of running backs ready to go, so I think they'll be able to absorb that loss pretty well. Geno Stone, cap casualty, and Patrick Queen, another cap casualty as well. With a team like the Ravens, they're so top heavy, but they have players to rebound. Kyle Hamilton should line up great in the safety. I think he's going to have a big year for them. Patrick Queen has a loss, but you can't keep everybody. And as stacked as that defense is, with Roquan Smith being the main leader of the defense, I think they'll be able to survive just fine. But ultimately, like a lot of teams, the Ravens, the regular season doesn't matter. They could win the division, they could win the AFC North, but if they don't win in the playoffs, they lost season anyway. Who cares? Because Lamar Jackson is who he is. He's won 2 MVPs, but he's lost a lot in the playoffs. It happens every year. Last year was a golden opportunity for them to finally get to the Super Bowl and finally prove himself. But Lamar Jackson got in his own way, started throwing the ball wildly down the field, and as a result had lots of turnovers, and as a result having that one of the best rushing attacks in the league, just like, I don't need you. Let me be the hero. And it's just like, Lamar, you're not that great of a throwing quarterback to, I just don't think he's the greatest option when you need to come back from a weight loss. You need to have someone that can throw it on the field. And I don't think, while Lamar Jackson has a decent arm, he doesn't have the best arm in the league. Far from it. He's not Patrick Mahomes. You can't expect him to just throw the ball 60 times a game and get you the win. You just can't do it. You need to run the ball. And if they don't run the ball in the way it's like they did last year, well, they're going to have a similar outcome. And next, we have the Browns. Now, I kind of flip-flopped on the Browns a little bit because they do have such a great defense. And if Nick Chubb can come back anywhere he was before his injury, they're going to be great. And as long as Watson keeps his interceptions down and is just, passable, this team should have a great chance to make the playoffs. And they didn't add too much. Jerry Jeudy, he's a decent wide receiver, but again, one of those guys that's off injured all the time. So how much can you really expect from him on a week-to-week basis? He should be second wide receiver behind Amari Cooper again, probably get close to 1,000, but again, I'm really unsure about how much he's going to bring you. Devin Bush, again, he still hasn't been able to replicate what he did his first year in Pittsburgh. He's been kind of on and off, having some really bad times, but some good times in there as well, just back in the AFC North. Jordan Hicks, what he is. He's going to give you some moments at the linebacker position, but he's kind of a hired gun. He's been going from team to team over the last couple of years. Jameis Winston, don't see him seeing the field at any point this year, really. And Cade York, who knows what he is as kicker. Biggest loss, Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco was great for you and really helped you get to the playoffs and really was well deserving of the comeback player of the year. I don't care what anybody says. Damar Hamlin is not good at football. It's great that he's still alive. It's great that he's walking around. It's great that he managed to survive that horrible night, but he barely played at all last year. And just because he come back to life doesn't mean he's comeback player of the year. I'm sorry. It's not. Joe Flacco was comeback player of the year. No doubt. And there's really no question about it. And anybody that thinks otherwise, you're dumb. You're just plain dumb. But yeah, Browns have a good chance to go to the playoffs. It's just going to come down to Watson. I think Watson's going to be the real X factor for them. If he can get to anywhere of his form that he had in Houston, they have a good shot. If not, and he's throwing interceptions, he's throwing really bad passes, it'll just continue to go down as one of the worst trades in NFL history. But yeah, third place is a good place for them. I think a lot of these teams are going to beat up on each other. Most of them are going to finish close to 500 or above 500. It's going to be a matter about who makes the playoffs and who doesn't. And last but not least, the Steelers. Yes, again, the Steelers, I'm sure, will finish above 500 once again. But at what cost? At what cost is it worth the Steelers being over 500 if you're not making the playoffs, you're not making a decent run, and you're not winning games against the teams you need to beat? Because every year, they play poorly against really bad teams that they should blow out. And then they beat teams that they shouldn't beat. They play very ugly football. They have two good running backs. Now, Najee Harris isn't the prettiest looking guy to watch. He plays really ugly, but he gets results. He's had over 1,000 yards every time he's been in the league. And Jalen Warren really started to find his own last year, and I think he has a really good chance to break out again this year and maybe supplant Najee Harris as the number one running back. I don't know how likely that is, but I think it's a thought that should be out there. Russell Wilson. I think he's going to be the starting quarterback for most of the year. Justin Fields is there as 2. I don't know. I think he still has something in it. I think he does have a shot to do something with Pittsburgh. It's just a matter of him taking the time to work on his game and get better. And maybe, just maybe, he can take over when Russell Wilson somehow gets hurt again. But I think Justin Fields will still be in Pittsburgh for a couple of years. So I think really I don't see him passing Russell Wilson all this year. Maybe in the next year, but not right away. I've heard rumors that Russell Wilson doesn't make it out of camp and Justin Fields is starting quarterback this year. I don't know how likely that is. He needs to work on his game. He needs to get better. He needs to be able to throw the ball faster in the pocket. He needs to not hold on to it so long. He needs to try and develop his passing game and footwork. Then that's how he's going to get turned into a better player. He has a better chance to be a better quarterback because he's finally out of Chicago, a team notorious for ruining quarterbacks left and right, as they're about to be ruining another quarterback with Caleb Williams this year. Now back to their additions. Dante Jackson, decent cornerback. Troy Fautanu, looking to really help solidify that offensive line. The offensive line should be much better this year and maybe, just maybe, produce at least one 1,000-yard receiver and maybe one that's 800 to 900 rushing yards. I mean, if that offensive line turns out like I think it could be, they could have a really, really strong rushing attack again this year once again. Patrick Queen is going to be great for them, the linebacker. Signed a real lucrative deal. He'll finally get to really shine in Pittsburgh. I mean, he really broke out last year in Baltimore. He's a cap crunch. So I think he'll find some new moves out in Pittsburgh and be a really good linebacker to them for years to come. Now for the losses. Rudolph, not much of a loss. Kenny Pickett, not much of a loss. Their biggest loss, Deontay Johnson, who was their number 1 wide receiver for the past couple years. And I think it's going to be kind of a loss. And now I think the Steelers will have a decent offense this year, but in terms of wide receivers, all they really have is George Pickens. I mean, they got Troy Burton out of Alabama. We'll see how he does, but they have a couple good running backs. Not too much a receiver, but a really good wide receiver if he just gets out of his way and stops being an idiot. But ultimately, the Steelers finish above 500, but again, miss out on the playoffs, and also because Arthur Smith is your offensive coordinator. That's a bad deal. It's a bad deal. Did anybody learn from him in Atlanta? Apparently not. But that's what I think. Bengals 1, Ravens 2, Browns 3, Pittsburgh 4. Now I think it's going to be a very even division because I think they're all going to beat the crap out of each other. And also for the Steelers, they could start out really well, but because of that buzzsaw of schedule at the end of the year, I just don't think they have a real shot at winning the division. I mean, maybe, just maybe, but I think it's a long shot at best. But still over 500 because that's just what they do. Walking mediocrity like they have been for the last decade or so. Will they ever get back to where they were back in the 80s, the 70s, early to mid 2000s? Probably not, but we'll see what happens. But let me know what you think down below. Have a great day, and as always, God bless.